Welcome to our weekly cybersecurity article review in 30 minutes. And I am always looking forward. The team of us are always looking forward to having these awesome conversations. There are so many things that are actually happening within cyberspace. And for sure, as it relates to cybersecurity, then we can all attest to the fact that cybersecurity continues to be a challenging job for many of us. And as a result of that, then we as cybersecurity practitioners have to do all that we can, collectively to keep abreast with the latest TTPs. And we are talking about the tactics, the techniques, and procedures to better develop and implement the most effective strategies and controls to mitigate, to deal with the various cybersecurity risks associated with businesses and organizations of all type. And let me quickly just, for many of us, just to bring you up to speed with some of the cyber news headlines that you might have missed over the past weeks. And for many of us, it can be quite challenging to keep abreast of all that is happening within cyberspace. But taking that time to at least be abreast of even two or three articles, just to know what is actually happening within the environment does makes a difference in terms of our mindset, our plans, working with our teams in terms of actually staying ahead, knowing what to look out for, knowing how to tailor our various programs to deal with all of these various, challenges that exist within the cyberspace community. And as always, we are always looking for ways that we can better enable and strengthen each other as it relates to, I mean, using our capabilities, our skill set to really help organizations, to really help us individuals, the end users that are in most occasions that are affected when you're talking about PII. That's data. That's very important, and all organizations function on data. And some of the happenings over the past week, and I'll just be highlighting just a few from the various, sites. Some of you are in tune with various podcasts, um, news platforms. Looking at the some of the highlights coming from the Hacker news. Many of you are familiar with this. We're seeing a case whereby we have the 8 base ransomware spike in activity threatens US and Brazilian business. So there we have ransomware, and that is as late as the 28th of June. We have also crypto lab scam ring targets French speaking investors. If we jump over to even bleepingcomputers.com, we have the case where we have the American Airlines, Southwest Airlines disclose data breaches affecting pilots. That's also a very big one that is being discussed today. If you look also at cybersecurity news, cases mentioning over 33% of employees are clicking malicious links, phishing reports, and these are some of the things that continues looking at cybersecurity dive for persons who are actually in tune with that news platform as well as state and local governments grapple to mitigate cyber risk, and the list goes on. So these are the various events that are actually taking place within cyberspace. And if you want to really get even more technical, then for those who are actually on the technical side, then there are also many other um, events or incidents that actually dive further into some of those. So it's always good, guys, to stay in tune with some of those. And for sure, this conversation that we have looking at these various articles could not be um, made possible unless I actually had the support from persons like Paul Robinson. Paul, thanks for taking the time to join in this conversation.
Yeah, thank you, Risha. It's always good to come on here and spend these few minutes to educate our community and learn something ourselves too, and get better educated from the articles that we pour over throughout the week.
Great. Definitely look out. It's always a pleasure, guys, to have you. And for many of us, we're accustomed to having, we're talking about Jonathan Fisher and Omar Carter. And from time to time, you will see persons, they interchange. And the platform is always open to, I mean, any of you who are actually willing to participate, to join, to provide your feedback. I mean, it's all about growing, building, and making what we do better as cybersecurity professionals. So, one of the articles that actually jumped out from this is, I mean, one that actually looks at the American Airlines, that Southwest Airlines discloses data breaches. Paul, can you actually shed some light on that? I mean, incident that is actually affecting this critical industry.
Yeah, so this was a good article, and I know it's kind of subject to American Airlines and Southwest because those were the two organizations that had the cyber attack executed on them. But a couple of things from the article that I do want to point out to that where it impacts everybody is the first thing is the responsibility to protect employee data, and a lot of a lot of our efforts, a lot of our thoughts are around client data, which is very important, or third party data, very important to protect that. We have a fiduciary. That fiduciary is a word in cybersecurity. I know it's used for legal terms or business terms, but we do have a fiduciary responsibility. If people are entrusting us with their data or their personal information, we have a legal responsibility to protect it like it's our own, and to make sure that we are protecting our clients. But employee data is also just as important. And it's interesting. We had a conversation around this a couple of weeks ago with the Yum Brands data attack, where it looked like they were going to produce, go through with some lawsuit as employees against their employers for protecting data. And that's how this happened here. There was value to have. I think it was 5,000 for American Airlines, maybe the same amount for Southwest, but pilot data. And when we think of pilots that are flying our airplanes, that is sensitive data. These men and women that get in planes and they get us from point A to point B, usually a very long distance in a reasonable amount of time. These are very important people in our society, and to put them in danger, to have their public information out there, to have well, not public information, but their private information out there, for that is important. And so as we as security professionals go throughout the day, and weeks and months that are out there, discussing strategy about how to keep our employee data safe is very important. How are we utilizing internal resources, internal technologies, on a day-to-day basis, and how are we doing it safely? I had a situation one time where a company, a smaller company, was attacked, and it was a dual attack of ransomware, and they stole the data. And when the FBI was involved in the negotiations, one of the questions that they'll ask is, okay, prove to us that you have the data. And they sent them a file back of everybody's 401k information that the organization had. So you want to talk about very sensitive information, and information that could have a negative impact in the wrong hands. That's it. We're talking banking numbers and, man, just personal information, things of that nature. So, it's having a strategy around that. The second thing that came up from this is the use of third party technology, from the company that was exploited to get to this data. And we're seeing that a lot more this year. This year has had major attacks, whether it's Move It, whether it's Barracuda, whether it's a couple other companies that are out there. The reliance on third party technology to run our businesses. How are we keeping them accountable for security? How are we keeping them in mind to make sure that they are, taking our data very seriously if we're giving it to them? It's a trickle down effect that I look at it, from that perspective. So One of the things that I would say is, if you're running a security practice at an organization, or if you're guiding an organization, review the contracts that you sign when procuring technology that could potentially be a conduit for an attack inside of your organization. Again, these are little simple things that you can do to protect yourself and your employees and your clients alike, is to make sure you understand that any technologies that you're introducing, they have a solid security program in place, that they're attesting to the fact that they are in compliance with things that they need to be in compliance with, and doing it from that perspective. Richey, we talk about the amount of information that we have to parse through to keep up with the things that are going wrong. And I saw in an article yesterday, it's true. Cyber risk is an endemic. It's an endemic. It's always going to be here. This will never 100% be eradicated. It will never 100% be secure for all organizations. It's an endemic. So when you have that mindset, in an endemic, you don't just throw your hands up and say, okay, well, I guess it's just going to happen. So what am I going to do? And just quit. But you do the necessary things, and you have a program of resiliency for your organization to withstand, attacks, or if it's legally determined breaches for your organization. And these are two simple things that you can do that don't necessarily need a tool or a lot of money to do, but making sure that there's a strategy around securing employee data, and making sure that you are aware of third party risk that could potentially be introduced to your organization.
Yeah, very important points. Now, Paul, let me ask you, based on the articles that we actually have identified, or articles that you have actually, listened to or read, or, whichever way we come to be aware of these, happenings, can you identify, when you look at these various incidents, breaches, the common, thread that exists among all of these in terms of the various attack methods, or that these organizations actually fall victims to these various incidents? Can you, provide some insights on those similarities that are trends that you see happening among all of these cases? Because I'm actually seeing some. I'm not certain if some of these might be jumping out at you at the moment. Guys, seem as if we have a delay. So, okay, great. Hopefully, Paul will actually be reconnecting shortly. So, one of the things that actually affects these um, industries. Okay, let us see, guys. We might be having Paul rejoining us.
Hey, sorry about that. Sorry about that. My internet conked out there. I apologize.
Okay,
Um,
great.
I
No
should
worries.
I should be back on. Yeah, I should be back on and stable. I did get your question that you asked. What's a common theme that we have inside of these things that take place, and really what it boils down to is the human aspect of it. Any attack, whether it's a misconfigured firewall, and a non-updated policy and procedure, or someone on the other end that's created a script, for malware to come in and to, harm an organization. It comes back to the human element of it. And I'm really not comfortable with, the statement of, oh, well, our weakest link is humans. A lot of people say that, and it's a very demeaning statement that we put out there when we say, oh, well, humans are our weakest link. It's like, no, humans are our strongest link, but we move so fast in our digital world that it's very difficult for us to, rationalize certain things, and put certain things into perspective. So, if you look back, let's use the American Airlines example. It's again, how are we putting strategies in place to protect our employee data. If it's third party risk that takes place, it's reviewing a contract. But really, humans can really put a dent inside of security issues and risk issues by just taking time and doing the things that need to be done from a human perspective. We're in an automated world. It's not even the advent, but the now the mainstream piece of AI that's coming, and we're becoming so automated and kind of mindless in some ways. We just mindlessly do things. And again, it's not where the human is stupid or they're a weak link. It's just the world that we live in. And so I think educating our employees, educating our executives, educating our board members on the importance of using the human aspect to protect ourselves would be huge. So yeah, it just all points back to the human being, and what is the human doing to protect and prepare for cyber attacks.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. One of the reasons why I actually pointed that out, and this I will also we mentioned in this in the article that actually, I mean, resonated with me as we look at the various events that actually took place over the past days. Looking at when you actually look at these events, we're talking about third party risk management, business email compromise, ransomware. And ransomware can actually take place in various ways to get inside our organization. I mean, using the various skills that are required to actually influence persons to click on maybe a particular link, accessing a particular website, or using maybe a particular device within your organization. Talking about our legacy systems, our outdated systems and applications, not to mention the intertwine of IoT devices within our organizations, not to mention those devices that we're not actually not monitoring to know what actually exists from a software and, and also the hardware side of things, talking about the human errors. And very importantly is the fact that when you talk about human errors, not just to add to what you have mentioned, we're talking about human errors coming from both the technical cybersecurity or IT guys, because so often we think about human errors, we're talking about the end users. Those are the guys that are making all of these mistakes, right? But you're talking about the technical side of human errors. Are we following best practices? Are we actually following the necessary procedures, or the way in which these, for example, firewalls are supposed to be configured, or the Active Directory servers need to be configured, or whichever application? At times, processes go by experience or assumption. Oh, this is what needs to be done, but is it that what is actually required based on best practices? So systems, I mean, human side of things, and also not, I mean, having a business continuity strategy in place. And this is also one of the weak points I see coming out of all of these cases. Not having that particular backup or infrastructure or resources or the necessary manpower or governance structure in place to help an organization to continue operate efficiently is actually where many businesses or organizations find themselves in as it relates to all that is happening. So when we look at this, can you say that when you are developing your strategy for your organization, there are certain fundamental risks that every business organization need to be aware of? Then you actually build your tailored program, security program, with these in mind. Would you say that would actually make sense?
Yeah, and there are a couple things I'll say. That one is I think it's implementing cause and effect into our cybersecurity programs. Cause and effect is a very ancient uh, process, an ancient mindset of like, okay, if I do this, what's the effect that it's going to have, and really running it through that filter, I think, is really important. So if we misconfigure a firewall, what's the effect? If we purchase this technology, what's the effect? If we don't update our policies and procedures, what's this effect? If we do tabletop exercise, what's the effect? Like really running through our strategy of like, okay, if we do it, what's the effect? If we don't do it, what is the impact on that? And it kind of goes to in hand with the question that you just asked. And really, organizations kind of have to break down everything from a business perspective. And we've talked about it before, the frustration that I have with our industry. Like we say, well, Target got breached, so we have to do this, or Colonial Pipeline got breached, so we have to do this. Like, well, no, you're not a major retailer, you're not a major conduit for energy services, you're a small manufacturing firm. The first question you ask is, okay, how do we make money, and then how could that be disrupted by a cyber attack? And break it down as simply as that. We overcomplicate way too many things in our industry, and we try to pontificate and act like we know everything and use acronyms and use binary, technical terms and things like that. It's really as simple to me as like, okay, how are we profitable? What are we in business for? What is providing paychecks? What's providing jobs? What's providing goods and services to the general public? And then what happens if the inability to provide jobs, have paychecks, provide goods and services? What does that equal? And then from there, you're like, okay, what are the things that are truly risky to doing that? And just start from there. And because a lot of people, I was talking to somebody yesterday, a lot of people just chase certifications. They chase ISO 27001, they chase GDPR, but they don't chase it with the mindset of does this apply to a business, which then I think leads to either you overshooting it and having way too many things in place and way too many policies and procedures and way too many technologies where you can't make money, or you undershoot it and you minimize the value of it and you have not many things in place to protect you. So running everything that you do from a risk and cybersecurity perspective through the lens of how is this going to keep us in business, I think simplifies the program and then makes it more palatable for employees, because our employees frankly don't care. They don't care about a firewall. They don't care about MFA. They don't care about password changes or things like that. But what they do care about is getting a paycheck every week or every 2 weeks or every month. And what they do care about is, are we servicing our customers the best way that we possibly can? So when you can articulate it to the business, then you actually strengthen your employees to be defense mechanisms, because now they're not looking at, oh, I got to change my password again. It's 30 days. This is frustrating. They do it with the mindset of, oh, if I change my password, then the likelihood of me keeping my job has been increased because I'm protecting the organization and the data and the applications that we have.
I'm totally in agreement with what you have just said. I actually like that way that you have actually, put it forward, that cause and effect, in terms of cause and effect planning for cybersecurity. That is so very important. What are the cause and effect if we do or do not? And at times, I really don't think maybe many organizations actually take that time with their team to actually look at all of these details and actually develop a document to actually document all of these elements and to actually do that thorough research and to gather the necessary data and to actually present this to
Yes.
the executives. And I believe that
Yes.
if the executives are aware of these cause and effect, not hearing about the technical mumbo jumbo as many persons would say, then I think persons will actually have that better appreciation. So I really like the way you have actually, coined that. Asking the right
Yeah.
question.
Yeah. And the beauty about risk, and this is what I tell people all the time, the beauty about risk is that you make a decision of how you want to work with risk. So, in a real life scenario, if I want to walk down I grew up in Brooklyn, New York. If I want to walk down a dangerous street at night because I want to get a slice of pizza, my end goal is to get that slice of pizza, but the risk is involved of walking through a dangerous street and something maybe bad happening to me. I can assume that risk. I'm like, no, I don't care. I want that slice of pizza, so I'm going to assume the risk. Or, I don't want to get shot at or stuck up today. I'm going to wait until it's daylight out where it's a little bit safer. Organizations can assume the risk, but the key word that you said, and I love that you said it, is that you have to document it, because I've been involved in way too many cyber events where it's the element of surprise that really damages the organization, where they don't know it. So, if a manufacturing organization has an antiquated tool to make widgets and it's connected to the internet and it gets exposed, if the organization just assumes the risk and like, hey, we can't do anything about it, at least they know. At least they know. It's at least the question, as you're digging out, is like, well, how did this happen? At least you know how it happened. At least you assume the risk, and then it can help you move on quicker from there. Way too many times, organizations, and I've sat with many organizations in incidents, and they're like, well, how could this possibly have happened? And it's not documented. The risk has not been documented. So they're killing themselves because they're putting out the fire, but then they're also like, well, how did this happen? And it wastes a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of energy, and really it's a hundreds of thousands of dollars an hour mistake that organizations might make without documenting the risks. And that's the posture that I think we need to get better at. Is again, this is an endemic, so it's not like, oh, well, woe is me, this happened to me. It's like, no, this is part of life. This is now part of everyday life, and how we have to live. But how much of the landscape do we truly know, and how much of the cause and effect matrix have we run it through? And we're not surprised that this happened, but how quickly can we restore our systems to provide goods and services for our clients and provide safety for our employees as well?
Yeah, very important points. And just to add to that as well is the fact that, I mean, it's very easy to have these conversations and to talk, and persons might say, you're not in the situation. I mean, we understand. I mean, you have various departments, you have the people element to deal with in terms of actually getting things done. So at times it's very challenging for cybersecurity, I mean, practitioners within organizations. I mean, there are so many things that can be done. I mean, zero trust. I mean, all of your frameworks that can be applied. And in all of this, the big question from the executives in many occasions is, how would these things happen? How did we get reached? Why did this happen? That's
Yeah,
always the big question with all the various tools, strategies, skill set. Organizations continuously experience these incidents.
yeah,
So you have actually highlighted a very key point, and it's going back to simplicity in all that you do. I mean, trying to make things as simple as possible, understanding your network, documenting the various diagram, looking at the physical documentation, the logical designs, having all of these updates in place. Actually makes a lot of difference, knowing what to look at, where to look at, when to look. I mean, what is normal versus what is not normal makes a lot of difference in the way you actually approach, I mean, the way you actually operate
yeah,
a business.
yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Good stuff.
So, yeah, very importantly, just one of the last point, I mean, coming out of one of the articles that I've actually gone through is one that involves an article published by Cybersecurity News, and it states that over 33% of employees are clicking malicious links, which is phishing based on this article. And that is one of the articles that actually stood out for me. And some of the reasons coming out of this is that these uh, actions of employees or end users are the things that actually leads to the various incident within organizations. So I am always looking at the fact that, can we always blame end users? And so many times end users are blamed, but I am of the opinion that if we design our systems, implement big security into our systems, not relying on end users, not to say that we do not want our organization to be security conscious or to have a security culture, But I always believe in actually baking security in all our processes, our procedures, our systems, to ensure that when our end users actually makes these mistakes, then there is something that actually catches these mistakes before they actually become detrimental to the organization. I mean, that's my take. Persons might have other controversial view. Persons might actually take me on, I mean, making this particular statement, but that's something that I strongly, I mean, believe
Yeah,
in.
I'm with you. The responsibility for human error, um, and again, this is controversial too. I think it falls on the shoulders of the company that they work for, because you can't, if you're not teaching, if you're not baking it in, if it's not just second nature, then you're relying on people's, that's not their job. It's not their job is not to be cybersecurity ninjas. Their job is to do whatever they're doing. If they're in sales, their job is to sell. If they're in marketing, their job is to put together marketing plans. If they're in operations, their job is to make sure the operations of the organization are there. Organizations are liable, in my opinion, to bake in, like you said, security, to make sure that they're doing their job safely. But if we're not giving them the tools and the education to do it, then that kind of falls on the employee. The company sets the culture for many things, and cybersecurity is now becoming one of those things that you set the culture for. And if you're not setting that out appropriately, then that's trouble. That's problems.
Yeah, very great note to actually end our conversation on. And it's always a pleasure, I mean, to have these conversations, to get the various
Yeah,
insights, to know what is happening within the industry that is affecting various types of organization. No organization is exempt. And as a result of this, then the best thing that we can do is actually build a strategy, have a plan of recovery to maintain that level of resiliency that is required within our organization, ensuring that you have the proper backup systems that have actually been tested, and having your regular tabletop exercises, doing your network segmentation. I mean, least privilege, apply zero trust where applicable. All of these things that you can actually put into place, ensuring that you have the proper, I mean, updates, I mean, patch management taking place. So,
yeah,
guys, I mean, there you have it. I mean, our cybersecurity article review in 30 minutes. So, see you next week for another informative conversation, same time, same place. So, guys,
great.
have a wonderful day.
Thank
Great.
you. Take care.
Bye.